Hello, my friends, my dear audiences. Welcome to the show East to West. Jack Chow is your host with the GNE TV. We pay attention to energy too, not only to politics, but sometimes, energy is politics, right? So the concern is with the Iraqi situation getting worse and worse, from worse to worse by the minute, people's getting worried, the world getting condensed about energy safety. We're talking about our oil supplies. We're talking about our gasoline prices. We're talking about how are we looking at this summer, so on and so forth. So joining me and then to get to the professional answers to those questions is my good friend, Mr. Drexel Smith. Hello, Drexel. Welcome to my show.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Jack.
It's been a long time. Only it's been a too long time since I last had you here, right? How was the traveling all over the world? You were traveling all over the world, right?
Well, haven't done too much world travel recently, but life has been good.
Mm-hmm.
Life has been good.
You've been traveling South America for some time. And then you were one time.
Primarily Asia. The last few years.
Asia.
Yeah,
All right,
primarily
good.
Asia.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right, so.
South America is all about soccer right now.
Oh,
so
yeah,
football,
I know
football.
that. But I called you, that was about a month ago. You were down by the canal, right?
Yeah, just holiday.
Just holiday. And then about 2 weeks ago, you were in Hawaii.
Yep.
All right, good. You were everywhere. Mm-hmm. All right, good. For a person who is well-traveled, who's been doing the energy business, he's an energy expert. By the way, he's a super senior consultant for a China-U.S. energy project, and he still is. Well, questions are in profusion, but to get to start though. What is your take about the Iraq situation? Is it the consequences of war, or is it a lack of leadership, or is whatever? So what nature is that, please?
Very complex question.
I always do.
Yeah. My view is the situation in Iraq really began over 100 years ago.
All right.
When the United Kingdom began to parcel up and literally create countries, as opposed to following lines from tribal and religious sects. I think the Western naivete at the end of the War I Ottoman Empire breakup,
I see.
created countries that really didn't follow either religious or tribal orientations.
I see.
So you roll the clock forward for 75 years, and you have hard religious groups that go back several thousand years from Muhammad and his son and believers that follow.
Yes.
And some believe one way, some another way. So you have the Shiite, the Sunni, and the Kurds are the three predominant groups in a country we now call Iraq that haven't agreed in 100 years.
They've never been agreeing to each other.
Never. So my view is that Saddam Hussein and other big guerrilla dictators are the only kind of government that force these groups to exist. You with me? So you take away
coexistence.
Exactly. So you take away the dictator, and remember, Saddam Hussein was our friend.
He was, yes.
When he was at war with Iran.
Even Bin Laden.
Okay? So you take him away, and what happens now is chaos.
All right.
You now have the religious groups that have armed themselves. You now have the Kurds that have taken the territory that they believe historically
All right.
is their area,
Uh-huh.
and similar with the Sunnis and the Shiites. And you have a government that we put in place that is not reaching out and bringing everybody together.
I see.
So I think the real hard question is, there's this belief that we're going to have and install a democracy. But not every country is capable of a democracy as we think of it.
Of course, there might be people who do not like democracy. Who
Well,
do
or
not want
democracy doesn't
democracy.
work because they don't get the same voice as somebody else. So my view of the world is, I see people in Iraq are like people everywhere. They want peace. They don't want war. But what they want is their voice. They didn't get a voice in the new government, which makes Iraq very open to the kind of chaos that we see today.
I see.
And I personally just simply read history, believe that we haven't seen the end to the chaos in Iraq.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I finally get you here to get the professional, thorough, profound analysis of that region, that area, from even from a point of a history ever started right now. The question is, second question is, just to get to the point, I'm not trying to make your day harder than, especially when it's a Friday though. Suppose it is a problem or a kind of problems that was started hundreds something years ago with the British lining them up,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or cutting them into pieces
Yes.
called countries. And it's been a problem ever since, going on and on. It's on a norm basis, right?
Exactly.
Okay, now, could it be better? Could it be better, the whole thing, the whole region, if we had not invaded?
Hard question.
Another hard one?
Hard question, because I think unanimously all of the Western world leaders believe that there was adequate evidence that Saddam Hussein had terrible weapons and had emotionally got himself into a position of using those weapons. It's my personal point of view that when we publicly announced that we were going to go into Iraq, is it any great surprise that we didn't find the weapons?
Of course we didn't.
Of course. You know, go look in Syria, go look in other places where you can find the tracks in the sand. I don't think the weapons ever went away. I think they got moved. That's my personal view, and I will carry that to the end. Now, was it smart for us to topple Saddam Hussein? I think many believe that he was a dictator that became personally so unstable that he was destabilizing the area. Where I have a problem, and I think that now historians are beginning to tell the story, that our previous leadership, President Bush and Vice President Cheney, didn't have a good plan for now you topple this dictator.
Yeah, of course.
What happens next?
Replacement.
They had this vision
All right.
that the Iraqis would say, freedom, yes, new government, democracy, and all of a sudden, what we ended up was chaos.
They might say yes one hand, on the other they might say no. Problem is that if Saddam Hussein was the one exactly supposed to be ousted, what about a replacement plan?
Exactly.
Right?
There wasn't one.
And when we do things on even to our day-to-day life, when we want to deny something, we always have a plan B there to back up, which is very very normal, which is to the common sense, right? And another thing to think about, it's a question to ask you, is that they kind of a balance there, even with a dictator, even with a demagogue, call him, right? Even with the worst guy of the worst kind ever, but he was the one who could balance the avalanche.
Well, and the counter argument is that he did it by tyranny. He did it by, if you don't love me, I'm going to kill you,
All right.
sort of ideas. And his jails will full with political prisoners and torture. So I think that clearly Saddam Hussein was a bad guy. The question is, what do you do about it? We have dictators all over the world.
Is Korea the same thing?
You know, for sure, North Korea for sure.
Yeah, of course.
And there's countries all over the world that are managed by less than wonderful people. I think
Less than wonderful. All right. I like that term.
I think the point is, Jack, one of my most favorite people in history is Winston Churchill. I
All
think
right.
he was
Winston
an
Churchill,
incredibly marvelous, good-thinking person. But he was part of drawing maps and parceling up the Middle East.
I see.
And there's a great quote about him saying, is it the Sunnis or the Shiites? I can't
remember.
I can't keep them separate.
All right.
And I think that displays an incredibly smart, knowledgeable, insightful world leader, maybe one of the best the world's seen
He was
throughout history,
He was the one time. Yeah.
was unclear
Exactly.
of these different tribal sects
Exactly.
and religious sects and how they interact, and the fact that they don't really respond to a central government.
All right.
They respond to their tribal chiefs and their religious leaders.
All right, good. All right, that's the analysis that I am looking for. So hold on. Hello, my dear audience. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow with my good friend, Mr. Smith, Drexel Smith, in a discussion about Iraq, trying to get to the point about this summer, about our gasoline, about whatever. But before we touch the gasoline that burns, there's something burning there already on a day-to-day basis. So talking about the Iraq problems. The Iraqi problem, with that analysis, that being said already, what are we facing now?
Well,
Can we put an end to it? Can somebody put an end to it? Anybody, be it Americans, be it British, be it themselves, be it the government, be it Al-Maliki, whoever, is there anybody or any force who can put an end to it?
Put an end, you're talking about, to the violence
And to end the havoc.
currently in Iraq. Jack, I don't see a good outcome. And I think that Western leaders arming certain groups, other countries arming yet another group, is going to simply add to the chaos. And I almost suspect that what's going to happen is for this fire to just simply rage and burn itself out. I'm not sure how we get engaged. I think we should be completely embarrassed that the religious sects have gotten so much control of so much of the country. I just almost suggest we have to let this play out. I don't think re-engagement militarily is very smart. But I think more importantly is, what are the consequences to that? You have a human consequence in the Middle East. You now have Iran that's beginning to look at how they can be opportunistic, taking advantage of a destabilized, longtime enemy. You have the Kurds in one part of the country, the Shiites and the Sunnis. You now have Israel very concerned about a destabilizing area. And then, of course, you have this war that's been going on, civil war for a long time in Syria next door. So what's the impact of our great friends in Jordan? What's the impact of our biggest oil supplier called Saudi Arabia? And how does all this interplay? I'm of the opinion that we're at the point where the solutions are going to have to come from the Middle East. I think that the Middle East leaders are going to need to step up.
You really
and
don't
step
think
in.
U.S. can do anything?
I think our influence has begun to be too small. And I think the only game that we have is military. And I don't think, I think that wars for the last 50 years, beginning in South America, leading into Vietnam, these political, social insurrections can't be solved by big militaries.
Yeah, right.
I think we've demonstrated that didn't work. Russia tried that in Afghanistan. It didn't work.
Sure. All right. Now,
People
ground
want more
forces.
parley to their own.
Ground forces are totally, obviously, in denial right now. But somebody in the Congress or at the Congress in the houses are pushing for some kind of an air raid to bomb Iraq. Or somebody recommended we can use some drone strike like that. So what's your comment on that? Would that help? Would those actions help?
Well, my personal point of view is that I would like to see Iraq as a country be a robust economy and a player to the world. It appears to me the only way to do that is to have a government that accommodates and recognizes the tribal and religious leadership and makes them all come under one tent. The current Iraq government hasn't.
The government is impotent of doing that.
And the current government's incapable of doing that. So now the decision we have is, we recognize the government's ineffective. Do we help that government militarily by bombing? It's a very challenging question.
But the second question is who to bomb. They're all kind of tangled. Who to bomb, right? So the thing. All right, now back to the
you run around
thing.
and shoot people in pickup trucks that have guns.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
Hard problem.
Exactly.
Hard problem.
Back to the government thing. We created a puppy government who does not even function at all. And then put it this way, back then, we overthrown an old government and created a new one, which is a puppy, right? And then we throw this puppy, get another one.
Well, that's where the challenge is. I don't think that there's any debate from me about the fact that part of our mission was to topple Saddam Hussein. He was a bad guy. He was sinister. He was torturing and dealing with political prisoners. Now let's remove that. What our hope was, that the Iraqis would elect a government. Now they in fact elected the current government. I'm not sure that we installed it. I think we militarily calmed the country where they elected a leadership. But you know, the majority simply voting in a president that doesn't allow the other tribes and sects and religious groups to have an equal voice is not a solution. He's no better than the last guy. Okay?
I see.
So it's not about just the majority voting. It all has to do with a government, in my opinion, that represents a bigger constituency in the world.
All right.
But I think a big part of the impact question here is, I think that leadership in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and other countries that have the respect and the ear of both sides of Islam, or all of the sides of Islam, need to say, you need to stop this.
All right.
They need to take a leadership role.
But John Kerry was there a week ago trying to put the three together, including ISIS. And of course, there's no one answering his call, so they're still fighting. So with that going on, though, are we creating some next move, or are we just watching?
I have no knowledge. I'm not sure how effective Secretary Kerry is carrying a message. My personal view is that I think in too many areas in the Middle East, the United States has lost its credibility to provide anything other than military strength.
All right.
And that's not always the solution.
All right, now, so that said, can we confirm at one point it is not because of the war, it's the problem starting with the British?
Well, I think it's a problem that started
Or the
when
U.S. invasion made it worse?
it's a problem that started when you had different factions of Islam going back to Muhammad thousands of years ago.
Yeah, that goes 1,500
never been
years ago.
solved.
Yeah, never been resolved, right?
No, and,
Okay.
and that crisis, by the way, is moving way outside of the Middle East.
And in the foresee future, the problem is the difference is going to remain. Nobody's going to surrender to anybody.
Remember, Jack, we have countries that in the past 1,000 years have been so frightened over this issue of over where Islam is that have not allowed them in the country at all. So these conflicts are not new. That was the reason of the Crusades almost 1,000 years ago. This is nothing new. What's new today is the complete synergy that the world has on economies and activities. So because of the destabilization of Iraq, the fear of their contribution of oil in the economies, prices of oil has now gone back to being very high. And it's impacting the economic recovery around the world.
That's why we're here. Let's take a short moment out. When we come back, probably we should put the problems aside a little bit, talking about the consequences of the problem, direct consequences. Stay with us. Hello, my dear audiences. Welcome back to the show at East West. We love you a lot. That's why we try to pack as much information as possible to your day-to-day life, including bringing information or analysis about Iraq, what's going on there. All right. What's going on there is what's going on anyway. So speaking of that devil, the devil itself is one thing, but the consequence is the other. We are mostly concerned about our gas. There was one time we thought we fought the war, the gasoline price will get down. So instead of getting down, what we see is skying up, rocketing up to almost nowhere. We were once at the $5 point. Now with the situation getting worse, like I said, by the minute, the concern, the worries are condensed. To get to the answer, I have my good friend, an energy expert who is a top advisor of China-U.S. energy program, Mr. Drexel Smith. So to Mr. Drexel Smith, how much do you think these problematic situation right now is going to affect our gasoline price looking into as more directly as possible, such as this summer?
I don't think it will be helpful.
No? Oh, yeah, of course, it's not helping anyway. All right.
I think if we can take sort of a step back and look at the issues in the Middle East and the OPEC oil producers, we have chaos in Iraq. You have the continued civil war next door in Syria. You have a destabilization of that part of the world and their contribution from OPEC that is a part of the issue. You have now over in the Ukraine a separate problem of additional chaos brewing that I think all gets interconnected when we talk about energy.
Yes.
Albeit that in the Ukraine, which is a major distribution place for gas and how it impacts Europe, that is still energy that's being used. And if people don't have access to that gas, they're going to be using oil and other resources. So it's all gets interconnected, and I worry that if we can't restabilize some of this stuff, and I'm talking about I'm talking about the world.
When
not
you say
the
we, we're
United
talking
States.
about people.
I'm talking
Or
about world leaders.
United
If we
States.
can't get some stabilization in this, my view is that the problem gets bigger, not smaller. Now, just to paint a perspective, the last data set that I have was for this past April,
All right.
a couple of months ago, and the OPEC nations imported to the United States 287,000 barrels of oil. Non-OPEC was 177. So 287 to 177. So obviously our dependency on OPEC for oil is not insignificant. It's a big number.
It's a big number, yes.
Iraq alone was only 9,000. So of the 287,000, Iraq's contribution was only 9. Okay?
All right.
So it in fact is not a big number.
All right. That's
Okay.
half a percent.
Yeah, it's not a big number.
All right.
All right?
All right.
But the issue is simply this, my friend. It is the destabilization that makes the market fearful. It is people that now say, oh my, one more destabilized oil-producing country, I need to hold on to some.
All right. The reserve's going to increase.
Well, that's my prophecy, because people are going to say that is one more piece. So you've got a combination of things happening. You have issues in the Ukraine with forecast on energy. You have a continuing destabilization in the Middle East. And in my personal opinion, we have a lack of a comprehensive energy policy in the United States. We began to talk about the Keystone Pipeline project on your show almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, not working.
And
right?
we still don't have a policy on that
We don't have
matter.
a policy on that. No.
And our administration is still conflicted between pressure from the environmental groups and the long-term energy
Our
independence.
dependency problem has never been resolved.
Energy independence is still in question. We're still conflicted. And what makes me even more bothered, I'm not sure that angry and upset yet, but I'm getting close, that we just don't have a comprehensive national energy long-term policy. We're still reacting to short-term political pressures. So you combine the three things. Again, issues in Europe. We have destabilization in the Middle East. It's not resolved. You have other countries that are growing, increasing their demand. Okay.
Such as India, such as China.
Exactly.
Yes.
So all of these things at some point, it's my opinion, will become a tipping point for the United States and our constant thirst for drinking gasoline. The wrong kind of alcohol.
In other words, to get to the point though, you're talking about somebody, some power, some whoever, who needs to stabilize the situation. Number two, the U.S. gasoline or oil or energy dependency has to be reduced by whatever. And the Keystone, you especially mentioned about the project still waiting for a green light to go on, right?
Exactly.
In the meantime, if there's anything more popping up, it's going to not help anymore. It's going to go only worse because everybody tries to, in such a situation, increase their reserve to hold on to something before the worst day comes.
Exactly.
Is that what you're reading about now?
Exactly.
I see. That's very risky. With that being into concern, though, what should U.S. do? Their solution needs to be found.
Well, I think in the United States, our administration needs to come to grips with, and the administration, again, is another example where we need to work with Congress and have a true national energy policy that's cogent, that transcends these little political skirmishes. The energy policy must include the completion of the Keystone Pipeline. It must address the issues of fracking and whether that's the technological marvel or whether there's some true environmental consequences we need to be concerned about. So we need to embrace the whole area of new production, new transmission, which is the pipeline and how we get material from one place to another. That whole sector needs to be dealt with in parallel with a continued push for more energy efficient means, a continued push for non-petroleum carbon-based technologies.
That's the longer term.
Absolutely.
Right?
But all those need to come to play. There's not one bullet, there's not one solution. It's a comprehensive mix. So the people that push just the environmental solution of use less energy are not being realistic. Energy is closely tied to the whole economy.
Yeah, in other words, understanding the fact that the area is a problematic area anyway.
Talking about the geographical area in the Middle East?
Geographic area anyway, right?
Yep.
Problems are going one way or the other, going to show in one way or the other. If not today, tomorrow, it's going to be problem anyway. So in the long run, you have to be self-sufficient. Get to that point, you have to have a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term plan laid ahead of you before the worst day comes.
Exactly.
Right? So do you think our leaders are really aware of the problem now?
Oh, I suspect there's absolutely no lack of awareness on the part of our leaders.
All right.
What I think is absent, Jack, is our leadership is just far too political. You know, there was a time that Congress had a good balance with citizens going to make decisions. We had technical people, we had business people, we had educators, we had lay people, and some lawyers and politicians. Today, it's mostly lawyers, long-term politicians.
You're talking about lawyers,
they consider it their job. We have less than 1% of Congress that has any technical background. So the ability of this group of people to work with a very politically oriented administration, to me, is just a bad mix. And we've seen several years of just our inability to come to grips with important problems.
If I may quote from Mr. Kurt Hageman, Assembly Member of California, he said there are people among them who has never been cutting a paycheck to employees. They never know how to run business, right?
It's a big problem.
All right, let's take a short moment now. When we come back, we'll talk about the investors. So stay with us, please. Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to the show. Jack Xiao hosting on East and West with G&E TV. Well, as the discussion goes deeper and deeper, answers seems to be found, and we seems to be lost while answers are found. So that is the problem. That is the contradiction between reality and the idealistic world. We're talking about when you dig into resolutions, you find none. All you found is the problem and explanations of the problem. So the problem remains. Problem doesn't change only because you understand the problem.
But Jack, if you and I could become the benevolent dictators for a month, we would fix the problem.
Well, we will.
There's no lack of solutions.
Sure. That's it. All right.
There's
that's
no
it.
lack.
That's the lack of the right person on the right job.
It's the lack.
All right. Good. Okay. All that being said, as a condition, lots of my friends are investors. They play a lot with their money. Of course, they're rich. So some are
you
even,
have lucky friends.
So some are even pin their money in the petroleum industry.
Yeah.
All right. So
take the money.
So
how take it to Las Vegas.
How do you recommend us at such a situation? I know you're an investment expert,
Oh,
and let us know how to make some money with this at this moment with a situation like we explained.
Well, yesterday's headline of Global Economics from Bloomberg had the highlight, rising oil prices loom over world economic recovery. And the second tagline was, a strong and sustained recovery seems unlikely as long as oil is above $100.
Wow.
So let's take this in pieces.
Okay.
If I am an investor in oil and I bought oil futures, I'm a happy person because the price of oil is going up. My suspicion is that oil will continue to be a very lucrative commodity, but there's no reason to expect it won't continue to porpoise just like it has been. But I see oil, with all the instability that we've talked about around the world, continuing to be very expensive.
So
Would I recommend an investment? I won't recommend any investor, but I would say to you, I see no near-term sign of the price of oil going down. I see no reason for it to go down.
So
Okay.
even though you're not predicting the price will skyrocket one more time, but still it has a strong tendency of going up rather than going down.
Well, oil on June 19th was $114. And if you go back just a couple of weeks before that, it was 107. So if you're an investor and you can make money on those $7
within 2 weeks,
are you better to go to Las Vegas or you better to play the oil future? I don't know. You know, you need to hit the up and down correctly. If you look at oil over 6 months, it's porpoised, but it's porpoised going up.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You with me?
It fluctuates, but
it fluctuates.
The tendency is going up while fluctuating.
Exactly. But let's talk about the impact of oil, which is a more broader question to investors.
All right.
If you're betting on the economy around the world to go up, I agree with the headline from Bloomberg. As long as oil is this expensive,
It will.
it will negatively impact the growth of the world economy.
I see. So it
And
will slow
because
down.
it
will slow down.
It's so interrelated, Jack. It means that the price of everything goes
It's
up.
going up. Yes,
It means
yes.
the cost of manufacturing goes up, the cost of transportation goes up, the cost of everything goes up directly related to energy. Even your leisure time goes up.
All right.
The cost of energy to fly airplanes, so the cost of your airplane ticket goes
How
up.
about our prices at the pump? To regular Joe, average Joe and Sue's, they are more concerned not about investment money. They are concerned about their pump prices. So yesterday I saw 417.99. Right, that's 418 anyway, right? So what's the pump price going to be?
It's pretty close to 418.
No, pretty close to 418. Yeah, all right, good. 1% of a penny. That's it.
I regret to tell you, I have an older car, but a large engine and requires premium gasoline. So when you are paying 418, I'm paying 440 for premium. It's even more painful.
Even worse to you, yes.
But Jack, as we've talked about on several occasions on your show, the price that the consumer pays at the pump is influenced by many, many factors, not just the price of crude oil
I see.
by the barrel. Remember all those discussions?
Summer blend, winter blend, you mentioned one time.
Well, it's influenced by the distribution cycle. The next step is the refinery. If you're in California, we pay a premium, especially during the warm months, for special refined gas. to minimize the air pollution. So the influence, you need to look at where the impacts and the influences are from the distribution channel to the distillery. Remember, we had a big spike in gas price at the pump. At the same price, crude was low. And you asked me why.
Yeah.
Remember
That was one of
that was
the
because we
bizarre
had
situation that we got
refineries
lost,
close and all of
explosions. There was explosions and closing of lines or whatever, close up of lines. Yes.
So you need to do an analysis if you're going to ask about the price at the pump on where the different influences are on that price. Okay? Here in California, what you have is the summer months that require a special mix of gas that's more expensive. You have crude oil that's more expensive. That's easy to identify.
Yeah.
Okay? And you'd have no new refineries. So if you take that component as being static, you still have those other two influences that I don't see as going down. I don't think the price of gas at the pump
So I
in this summer is going to have any...
once at the beginning of this year, probably February, you were here talking about a prediction. No, prediction is not a word. Expectancy about the gasoline price at the pump about this summer, though. And I remember, not exactly quote unquote, but you said that it's going to be between $4 to $4.50 on an average day as a norm, right? So are you still sticking to your previous prediction or expectancy, or you're thinking about that should be going still higher than that? Than 450.
I guess as a gambler.
As a gambler, yes.
My expectation would be 4 to 450 is probably the right range. I don't see any tipping point that during the next 2, 3, 4 months that would drive it to a $5. But remember, that's conditioned upon refineries remaining stable and no catastrophe.
No catastrophe, no explosion, no whatever.
And remember, I said I was very concerned about the instability of Iraq, but more because of its consequence of creating more instability in the Middle East, not just Iraq's contribution, because their contribution to oil is not that significant to the United States.
But the
it's more
situation
significant
does.
to the
The
world.
situation does. The picture does.
Oh,
yes.
Absolutely. The instability is dramatic. And of course, the wild card is always what does Israel react to protect their interests,
All right.
So,
one last question, Jack. So there's a concern, even me and my friend, a bunch of my friends the other day over dinner, we talked about. So suppose the Iraq situation gets worse and worse to a point that U.S. has to send the ground troops from a humanity point of view or so on and so forth. Then Syria would join the party, right? When Syria does, Iran has to do something. And then how about Russia? How about the rest of the world? So when everybody, more and more parties join the party, there is the danger they're thinking about the World War III. Do you think that's a legit thought or a logical thought, or is it not necessary? I even hate to mention that. I hate to say the word. It makes me goosebumps all over.
Let me speak to my hope. My hope is that we learn lessons and we remember lessons that those kinds of major military actions really don't yield a very good outcome for anybody. And I would like to hope that we've matured to the point that we can avoid another major world conflict. When I look around the world, I say, I don't think China has any current appetite to be engaged. I don't think
I
that
don't
other
think so. I
major
don't think
countries
China
do.
has any intention of doing that nature.
I'm very concerned about Vladimir Putin as an individual that's
He might try. He's still
that's
young.
rebuilding this national identity of Russia because he feels that Russia was so personally harmed with the breakup of Russia. You know, Russia and the United States 70 years ago fought
He
side
says
by
one
side.
time. He said one time, giving him 20 years, he will bring the Union back,
Yeah.
the Soviet Union back. Right. Anyway,
What about respecting people's freedoms does he not understand? The reason that those countries broke apart and stood up on their own is because people want freedom.
we want freedom, we want democracy. All
And
right.
my fantasy is, and I'll put it in the category of fantasy other than answering your question,
All right.
because I don't have any basis to answer your question.
All right. I don't hope you have.
But I would like to hope that people remember where we were just 70 years ago with the United States and Russia as partners. What would happen in the Middle East if Ivan and the Yankee walked in together
I see where you're approaching. Yeah.
and said, boys and girls, we will not tolerate this anymore.
Let's shake hands. Yeah.
Stop this behavior.
Yeah.
If the Kurds need a place, we're going to make an area where they can be in a leadership mode. The Sunnis and the Shiites, we're going to figure out how you guys can play, and we'll put the central government together that represents everybody.
Do you think the
And
United Nations can
the
do anything?
Yankee and Ivan are here together to say, boys and girls, as long as you're in the sandbox, you got to
As long
play
as you
together.
behave, right?
Behave.
All right, good.
And I think we, if we did something together,
Of that nature, yes.
could have a major impact. And,
right.
and have our good friend China standing there
Yeah,
saying,
sure, of course. Come
listen to
on.
my good friends.
Yeah, sure. All right. Let's do it, right?
That would work.
All right, good. All right, we're running over time. I'm sorry for that, but I still like to continue talking. This is really a good moment to learn about what is going on in Iraq and look into the future, especially looking into the gasoline price for the summer. Anyway, I owe my audience a great thanks, a great appreciation for watching the show, liking the show, and for my good friend, Drexel Smith.
It's always good to be with you,
very,
Jack.
very so much for your analysis and for your thorough analysis. Thank you so much.